Hi. How you guys doing?
Good. Settling in. How are you? Looks like you've got a
Pretty good.
view over there.
What's that?
Looks like you had a beautiful view outside. Uh-oh.
Yeah. It's very, very cool. I'm so stoked.
Hi guys.
Hi Izzy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
How's my connection seem to you guys?
It seems really good.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting everything open for the night.
I need to do the same. And then just FYI, I started recording now because I didn't want to forget to do it later. So It's just early record start, FYI.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm going to grab my files together.
Oh, I was going to say, I replied back. I didn't see the attachment come through with the guest list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me look for it.
Jen just sent it.
She only sent it to you and me though,
okay.
And then I was trying to send it on, but let me just do it as a forward instead. Okay, here it comes again. There she goes again. What was I gonna do?
Okay. Cool. Just got it.
I wonder how many people are going to come tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, you guys don't judge me. I'm going to hit my vape before people come on.
Judging. I'm judging. No, why would I judge? Why would I judge? Hit it, girl.
Judging.
Definitely not judging. Hey, I got a question for you guys.
Yes.
So the embroidery of the week, correct me if I'm wrong. So the flow is like we start letting people in. Hi everyone. I say hi everyone, and then into the embroidery of the week, and then introductions. Or does the embroidery of the week come in like? It comes in before people introduce themselves, right? It's kind of like as people are filtering in.
Yeah, the embroidery of the week is. I have it written down.
I have it downloaded. Let me test my
embroidery of the week and then intro.
So you guys can see it, right?
Oh, that looks great.
Cool.
And does intro and then embroidery of the week. Oh no.
Wait, does it happen, or does it actually happen? It's like, hi everyone, let's introduce ourselves, and then that happens, and then Jen says, okay, I'm going to take it back at 5:45, and then she goes into the script. It probably is fine either place. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, I think it's fine either way. Whatever feels more natural to you, because you're Emily.
Okay, cool. I think I'm going to do it before introductions because especially if we have a small group tonight and
Yeah.
people are prone to running late, best to have a little buffer in the beginning. And I'm going to make you guys both all-powerful co-hosts
Okay.
so that you can
finally the power to mute people who don't know how to turn their mic off.
Exactly. Those people, I'm just like, I'm just like, come on.
Yeah,
just
they're like,
for so long.
I know.
You know who? I'm not going to talk trash, but never mind. So I won't say it. But there's a couple folks I can think of. Let's see. Okay, I think you guys are both co-hosts, and I'm a host.
Okay. See it.
Coffee, did you get into any Thanksgiving mischief throughout the day?
Nothing at all.
Aww.
We went for a long walk in the morning, and there was like a 5K in our neighborhood. And then just smelling food around the neighborhood. And that's about it.
Long walk sounds good.
Beautiful fall day here.
Nice.
What about you, Emily?
So yesterday was my first day in Death Valley in the national park. So I hit that really hard all day yesterday, which was awesome. Never been before. And then today I've really just been cooking and making sound and walking on the property here at the Airbnb. It's cool. It's like a really modest, small manufactured home, but it's on a huge lot. It's on a 5-acre lot in Nevada. So I can just walk with the dogs off leash.
Oh, Lauren's here.
Okay, I'll let her in. Oh, you got her.
Yes.
Hello. Hi. Hola.
Hola, party animals.
It's us.
I'm wearing my alien shirt.
Oh, that's rad.
That's cool.
What does it say?
Roswell, right? Where
Roswell, Mexico.
Where you were when you were a little kid, right?
Yeah, I figured since today we're kind of subtly acknowledging the colonization of the continent that I'm inviting the next wave of colonizers in.
Oh my God.
Outer space. The next wave.
Bring it on. That maybe there's hope yet.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the alien takeover.
Me too.
Me too.
Me too.
I'm secretly trying to give Izzy sort of prompts. We're talking about a future sci-fi learning and mending series.
Oh my God, I would love that. I love sci-fi.
Me too. I'm almost done with The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin.
Yeah.
And I was actually just listening to this record. I'm at my cousin's house that my cousin has here of Ursula Le Guin, like one of the I guess fictional community that she like writes about. She has like a 500-page book about it with like drawings of their instruments and their technology and like their music, like a cassette tape. And then she made this record with one of her friends, and it's like their traditional songs. It's really in depth. It's pretty crazy.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
How's New York, Izzy?
It's good. It's cold, but it's nice seeing my family and friends.
Good. How long are you in New York for?
Until I think, well, I'm flying standby, so I'm gonna look when the loads look good, but I think until Sunday or Monday.
Are you upstate right now, or are you in Manhattan?
I'm in Brooklyn at my cousin's place.
Cool.
Yeah. I went upstate to see my grandparents for a bit, which was nice, but they don't have it in them to do like a Thanksgiving thing anyway. So
Big
Like,
meal.
to spend some time with them. Yeah, I cooked for them while I was there. It was nice.
Nice.
So I'm just gonna take notes of the order of things. I always have to write it down each week.
Let me get my needle craft ready.
Yeah.
All right,
Let me
I'm
get
gonna
some
grab
water.
a few snacks. Be right back.
Okay, me too. I have to grab them.
Good girl, Lala. Good girl. Who's a good girl?
All right. Ella. Look at the cutie. So,
Yeah.
Izzy and Kavi, you guys are down to let people in?
Yes.
And you got the invite list?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we ready?
Should we do it? Should we open the floodgates?
Let's
The
do it.
the
See what
river-
other Zoomers are here on Thanksgiving.
It's more of a light trickle.
It's down to the hardcore,
Yeah, it's the hardcore crew.
hardcore learning and mending.
All right.
Get overtime today. Overtime, comprehension overtime. Twice as much comprehension happens on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
People here,
So should we
and I'll let
start?
them all in.
Okay. I also have the list, but go for it, Kavi.
All right, cool. Have a good show, everyone. Hello. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to our special edition of Learning and Mending. I'm sitting in for Jen Curtis tonight, and I'm gonna do my best to host you all. Hi, Ansu. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Hi, is it Yasmin or Jasmine?
Jasmine, or either way.
Jasmine, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I can share thanks for everyone for being here. I can share, before we get too deep into the reading, I can share our embroidery of the week here. Let me pull that up. It is a very special one. Let's see. There we go. And the artist is in attendance tonight. She may or may not be willing to say a few words, but here we are with the embroidery of the week from Lauren Bond.
Woo!
Wow.
I love the color.
Fabulous.
That's so beautiful.
Wow.
This
Amazing.
is one of those underground networks.
Yeah, this is one of the underground networks, and it was really fun to work on. I tried to incorporate all of the stitches that Jen was giving us. So there's like, I tried lots of different things because, hey, why not? You know, like that. This seems to be a really good place to just go for it. So I did all the things, the videos she showed us in the last series, and then invented some of my own. I don't remember what I did, but there you have it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Amazing.
Thank you, Universe, for that embroidery of the week accolade.
I love the colors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, perhaps we could go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then you can pass it to someone once you're done. You could say what you're working on or what you're doing tonight, and we just appreciate you coming and continuing to hold space on these Thursday nights for learning and mending in this supportive and gentle and grounding space. So I'm Emily, and I have she, her pronouns, and I'm calling in from Pahrump, Nevada today, which is about an hour outside of the Death Valley National Park area. And I'm here with my dogs, and we're having just a great time, and a great time considering deep time, I'd say. And yeah, it's been lovely, and let me pass it on to my friend Kavi.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am, thank you, Emily, for passing along. Kavi Lal here in Sacramento. My pronouns are he, him, and tonight I'll be sharing the screen. As I'll be not really working on anything, but excited to hold space with you all today. I'll pass it over to Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine, and this is my first attending the Commons session. I'm in Northern California, around Pasquenta, which is Nomaki land, and not working on anything embroidery at this moment, but I just started a regenerative ranching apprenticeship, and I'm in a pretty remote area, so I'm excited to be connecting with you guys. And I'll pass it to Izzy.
Hi, welcome, Jasmine. I'm Izzy. My pronouns are they, she. I'm calling from Brooklyn tonight, and I am just going to be listening. And yeah, I forgot my embroidery, so I'll doodle and listen, take notes. And I will pass it on to Olan.
Thanks, Izzy. I'm Olan. I'm calling from West Hollywood. I use she, her pronouns. I started a new Beneath the Surface one, and I'm trying some golden threads in there. I don't know if you can see that track, but yeah.
Yay.
And I'll pass it on to Ansu.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. And I'm calling in from Eagle Rock in LA. My pronouns are she, her. I have made incremental progress since the last time around, and I'm practicing the basket stitch on a piece of cloth. And actually, I'm thinking that the basket stitch doesn't show well with the soft, fluffy embroidery thread. I think I need more, like fewer strands of this thread, or maybe I'll just get a thinner thread, because it just looks like a clump rather than to show the intricate weaving of the basket stitch. So I really appreciate those videos that Jen had been sending us, and I try at least a couple here and there. So I'm so looking forward to the reading tonight. I'm so glad that you held this today, and I will bop it on to Sylvia. Are you there?
Yes, thank you. I'm Sylvia Holmes. I'm in Pasadena, California. I'm use she, her pronouns. I am working on putting Thanksgiving dinner on the table. And I'll pass it to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. She, they pronouns, calling from Gabrielino land along the LA River. I'm so glad Walker's here because I'm working on a bee and it makes me think of her. So I'll pass it on to Walker.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see everybody tonight. I'm calling in from Baja California in Kumi Island. I use she, they pronouns. And I'm working on this thing I've been kind of practicing my French knots on.
Ooh.
It's kind of like a weird microbial world.
Wow.
And who hasn't? What about Vicky? I just got on, so I'm not sure who's introduced or not.
I haven't
Vicky?
gone. I just got on.
Okay.
Yes. I'm Vicky. I am in Santa Monica. I use she, her pronouns, and happy Thanksgiving. And I'm just probably going to work on mending a dress as a tear in it. And thank you. Because I just got on. Olan, have you gone?
Yes, I have.
Maybe Joy. We haven't heard from Joy.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet everyone. I'm here in Los Angeles, El Sereno, Tongpoland, Northeast LA, and just showed up to my family's. So I'll be listening in. The topic sounded really interesting to me. And I'm tending a garden that I want to in Lincoln Heights that I want to turn into. I want to have skill shares and seed exchanges and just tend to the land, but as I have been, but not alone, and just wanting to connect with people that have similar interests. So thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Joy.
Right. Do we have everyone? Sorry, I just switched to a different network, so let me know if it's somehow not as fast as the other one. Stefano, the Italian, we can't forget him.
Hi, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. Stefano from El Sereno as well, and no embroidery yet, but I order one. So next week, I guess I'll start doing some mending. Yeah.
Are you embroidering any pasta tonight?
No, I made some rice. Yeah, no pasta.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm excited to be here as always. So looking forward to this time.
Great.
I think everybody's talk, right?
Yeah, I think we're good. I can take it back, Stefano, unless anyone here has anything else to add before we move forward. Just happy to be with you all. I'm looking for my special set of words for this moment, and I'll be right with you. This is the second, we held space last year on this day as well, right, Lauren?
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got 2 years running with this action. Sorry, just looking for my windows that I conveniently placed somewhere off screen.
I'll just let everybody know, since today seems like a special convening, that I wanted to welcome Cascade's daughter into the world. Last week, Cascade, who often comes, gave birth to her little girl, Azalea, 6 pounds, 6 ounces after 30 hours of labor. So she is at home resting, and I just wanted to share the happy news with everybody.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks for sharing.
Great.
I know Cascade's mom was on our guest list tonight, so we may get a special appearance from one of the Wilhelms. I did find my piece of paper, so let me grab it up here. All right. So I'm going to do my best to carry the torch that Jen Curtis has been carrying so beautifully with this introduction, but bear with me as, you know, I don't have as much practice as she does. In this series, Tending the Commons, we will be exploring how the commons can be an alternative approach to the destructive nature of capitalism, where individual and short-term gains have been prioritized over the common and long-term good. We will be asking questions like, what are the commons and what does this look like? How do social relations shift within the commons? In what ways do the commons resist the simulated scarcity of capitalism? This is the 6th iteration of Learning and Mending, following syllabi on abolitionist writing, indigenous perspectives of land stewardship, suffocation, Anat Singh's The Mushroom at the End of the World, and systems thinking. In many ways, this series is a continuation of what preceded it. We have examined alternatives to capitalism and its destructive, corrosive nature in the previous syllabi. But in this series, we are specifically looking at the alternative to capitalism, that is, the commons. Many of you have received embroidery kits from us of native plants, birds, and microscopic organisms that Metabolic Studio is currently cultivating on its project sites. Taken as a collection, all of the embroideries will collectively illustrate biogeocoenosis, which describes the intimate association, coenosis, between living things, bio, and the physical environment, geo. If you have not received an embroidery kit or would like another one, please send me your name and mailing address. Please send your name and mailing address to info@metabolicstudio.org. Tonight, we will share our screen, and we encourage you to read a section of the text aloud with us. When there is a pause in the reading, please feel free to unmute yourself and begin where the last person left off. Silence is golden, and there is no pressure to fill the transitional spaces while we enjoy a breath and continue crafting. Feel free to jump in and continue reading at your own comfort level. You don't have to read. It's also fine to enjoy listening. I love those 2 words next to each other, enjoy listening. So that's our brief introduction from my side of the table, and I'm going to pass it over to Izzy to tell us a little bit about tonight's text.
Thank you, Emily. Before I get into tonight's so let's all just take a comfortable seat. Tonight we're going to be doing calm abiding meditation. to just breathing as is. And it's often referred to as the breath that brings us back into the present. Instead of controlling the breath in this meditation, we're just letting the breath be. We sit with our breath in our own discomfort and just breathe through it in a non-judgmental way, just in recognition of our breath as is. So sitting or standing, feel the weight of your body through your feet or your seat, either way. If it's available to you, please straighten your upper body and soften the gaze. And just try to gently fixate on a point in the ground in front of you. You don't have to close your eyes, just fixate on a point. Take a deep breath in, recognizing the present moment. And as you breathe out, let your mind and breath dissolve into that space that you're fixated on in front of you. And relax in that space as much as you can with your awareness. Just let your breath flow effortlessly. As we breathe, try to connect to the natural cycle of your breath. Feeling the rise and fall of your belly. Tuning into the breath like a radio signal, sensing each breath as a unique. When your mind wanders, as it will, let any thoughts you may have float up and away from you as if they're in an air bubble. Keeping focused on the present breath. We're aware of our meditation, but we're also allowing ourselves to relax into the awareness. It is this awareness that allows us to let go of any thoughts that may drift into our minds and turn our focus back to our breath. Take a few more breaths. Continuing to relax. Let your thoughts dissolve. When you feel like you've come to a point where you're ready to defixate from that space you've been relaxing into, please return back. So tonight we're reading a text by Vandana Shiva, who's an Indian physicist and activist. And her scholarship exposes the enclosure of knowledge, land, and life at the hand of IPRs, which are intellectual property rights, and biopiracy. In the series Suffocation, we read her book Biopiracy, and she was also a panelist with Lauren for Metabolic Studios' third Interdependent Salon in collaboration with the Brooklyn Rails. So I think some of you here who have been returning to this series have awareness or relationship to her work. So in her book we're reading from today, Reclaiming the Commons, Biodiversity, Traditional Knowledge, and the Rights of Mother Earth, Shiva investigates the enclosures that I mentioned before, the attacks on local and indigenous life and knowledge through patents and imperialism, but also she strategizes the potential means of reclamation. So the specific chapter we'll be looking at tonight is the enclosure and recovery of the commons. And she begins this chapter by taking us through a philosophical exploration of the commons, such as the poetics of the commons and the commons as a philosophy of relation, or what some might call the actual act of commoning. But then she grounds this mode of being and relating into the struggle of physical sites. And her particular spaces of inquiry are community, seed banks. So for Shiva, the commons are necessary for survival, but she also suggests that commoning is almost essential to what it means to be a human in the world. So like every week, I'll place the glossary in the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask during discussion period. Thank you.
Thanks, Izzy. So we can move to screen share time, I believe. Thanks, Kavi.
The enclosure and recovery of the commons. What is then a philosophy of relation? Something impossible as long as it is not conceived of as poetics. Edouard Glissant. Understanding the commons. To be is to be related, and the notion of being related is deeply intertwined with the notion of the commons. We all find ourselves in a time where there's an urgency to redefine what it means to be human, which necessitates that we redefine what it means to be in relation with one another. And if, as Glissant says, the philosophy of relation is the poetics of relation, so too is the poetics of the commons. A redefinition of one implies a redefinition of the other, because the boundaries between humans and their environment, culture and nature, mind and body are indefinite. So what precisely would carving a poetics of the commons look like? Deconstructing the commons. In the current times, when the commons has become a crucial concept in carving a transformative politics, one also finds the language of the commons being co-opted by the neoliberal institutions like the World Bank, The Economist, etc., that attack it to render a positive spin to privatization and legitimize a new wave of enclosures in the interest of conservation, while softening the resistance. Cafensis and Federici put it succinctly when they say, it is almost a law of contemporary social life that the more commons are attacked, the more they are celebrated. The literature on the commons reflects a diversity of definitions, with each discipline producing a position depending on the contours of its thought. While ecologists center their investigations on protection and conservation, economists delve deeper into incentives and induced cooperation. Political scientists explore the idea of state as an active agent or decentralized agency. And anthropologists continue to focus more on defining the exact locus of community. These debates within the community of researchers become significant to trace as these points of terminus and departures heavily shape the policies reaching the grassroots. A case in point being the famous publication of Hardin's tragedy of the commons in the 1960s and the resultant large-scale state intervention in resource management.
Most of these tangents of thought were results of the minds of men deeply entrenched in masculinist, individualist, reductionist ways of being. All the way from Aristotle, who proclaimed something as ridiculous as what is common to the greatest number has the least care bestowed upon it, to Hardin, who said, ruin is the destination toward which all men rush, each pursuing his best interests in a society that believes in the freedom of the commons. And at the root of most of these positions on resources and their caretaking has been the idea that all of us operate from a place of immense scarcity rather than inner abundance, because of which the free rider problem becomes the biggest problem of a self-interested society. Our inner spiritual, emotional, mental scarcity that our inner spiritual, emotional, mental scarcity becomes naturally reflected in the outer story of scarcity that we weave. The tragedy of the commons being just one of the manifestations of that inner sense of limited space and time. The positions, theories, and abstractions resulting from that inner scarcity then become the hegemonic paradigms governing the commons. And as pointed out by Bonnie McKay, they become the definitional frameworks which decide what is considered the commons, which in turn shapes how these commons are managed, protected, and recovered. Therefore, the definitional frameworks are crucial to a genuine exploration of a poetics of the commons. Commons versus open access systems. It is important to understand the difference between a system of commons per se and an open access system. The latter assumes that resources are unmanaged with no ownership. This presumption of a lack of private property is instantly associated with a state of lawlessness and loss of control, which in turn makes the resource ripe for a tragedy, as enunciated by Hardin. The tragedy of the commons arises as a result of this assumption about an open access system of commons, with this being further rooted in the flawed and narrow idea that resources can be managed effectively only if they are in the control of private individuals.
However, we have enough instances all over the world that show a successful system of commons in the hands of communities. A system of commons, as we perceive it, is a system not lacking in ownership, but being owned at the level of a collective instead of individuals, with these groups possessing their own rules and norms for managing the use of the common resources and ensuring that resources don't vanish into their doom. What Hardin assumes in his tragedy is that the only way a society can function in a healthy way is through competition. And if we all don't compete to control and protect humankind, we'll delve into a state of complete chaos. However, the works of thinkers like Marcel Mauss show that in order for societies to flourish, they do not need to be organized around principles of the market. Even now, major parts of societies in the third world continue to work on the foundation of cooperation instead of competition. Thus, it is crucial to understand this difference between the two systems as the idea of an open access system which is unmanaged and hence in need of saving by private individuals is used by those who aim at enclosing the commons. Whether it is the forest commons or our seeds, corporations are trying to define our seed commons and our biodiversity as open access systems needing the management of their expertise and their innovation, which in turn necessitates the application of intellectual property rights like patents to reward this human labor. Ostrom and the Theory of Commons. Elinor Ostrom's extensive work on the commons and theory of collective action reflects one such significant definitional framework. Ostrom defined a common pool resource in her book as a natural or man-made resource system that is sufficiently large as to make it costly to exclude potential beneficiaries from obtaining benefits from its use.
Though subtly rooted in the same assumptions of autonomy, rational cost-benefit analysis, and utility maximization in humans, her work boldly challenged the rational egoist model of neoclassical economics being propounded by the likes of Hardin in his fable of the tragedy of the commons. She emphasized that people are not just individuals, but part of a cooperative solidarity, which not only leads to collective action, but additionally sustains the common resource over long periods of time on the basis of trust and reciprocity, without any external agency. Looking back, her three most crucial contributions in negating the rational reductionist models of the 1980s and 90s were recognizing that there was an interdependence amongst the commoners, highlighting that human behavior was diverse and not always predictable as per the egoist model of the individual, i.e. rational choice behavior, was contingent on a multitude of other factors, putting forth the idea that humans are fallible and bounded in their knowledge. Two of her reflections in her book on the commons still ring true. Neither the state nor the market is a successful system for allowing the people to sustain the use of natural resources, relied on their own systems of governance, resembling neither the state nor the market, which have accrued tremendous success over long periods of time. Thus, we have to look beyond the state and the market to protect the rights of the rural communities. Commons. Commons are the resources shaped, managed, and utilized by an autonomous community. Neither can be excluded, nor can a single monopoly of corporation or state exercise its powers over that resource. Another deeper definitional framework view of property itself. What this paradigm views as property has had a direct relationship with what commons were destroyed and enclosed. Throughout human history, catastrophic changes have taken place in the context in which resources are perceived. The enclosure of biodiversity and knowledge has been a part of that movement that began with colonialism. The success of the Industrial Revolution rode on the destruction of the commons, as natural resources in the commons had to be used as raw materials, and people's sustenance base in these commons had to be appropriated if the engine of capital was to be fed. These enclosures continue to be seen all around us, with not just physical commons, but also intellectual commons being subsumed through the IPR regimes shaped by the same Eurocentric perceptions of property.
From commons to commoning. While on the one hand, the war on the commons is intensifying, on the other hand, we are also witnessing a stronger and ever more powerful resistance coming from the grassroots for a society that reclaims the commons and revolves around the principle of social cooperation. This is reflected clearly in various seeds of reclamation being sown all over the world, from the Zapatista call for a new constitution in the state of Mexico, to the Bolivian constitution recognizing communal property in 2009. The struggle for the commons is the most crucial struggle of our time, and it is all around us in different forms and manifestations. Like any living organism, it is also mutating and becoming increasingly dynamic, with new forms of social cooperation being created in various movements, from free software, solidarity economy, time banks, urban gardens, and community-supported agriculture, to food co-ops, local currencies, and Creative Commons licenses. There is a whole paradigm of new social relations being brought to life, standing on the foundation of communal sharing. In lieu of how this struggle is mutating all over the world, another definitional framework being evolved by a set of critical theorists is the articulation of the process of commoning, practices that lead to the production and reproduction of the commons, and a different social relation involved in creating such a system. This shift is reflective of the transition we are seeing all around us towards a process-oriented systems approach. Whilst initially the commons were seen merely as resources or things that needed to be managed and protected, they are now widely embraced as a relational politics embedded in fluidity and our mutual vulnerability. From being viewed as a mere technical management of resources in space, they are now seen as part of the struggle to perform common livable relations in time. What our Indigenous communities already embodied in their worldview of the commons as a way of life is now slowly being moved towards by the rest of the world. In gradually tracing our way back, we are walking forward into a future embracing that liminality and inseparability between the communities and their common resources, between us and our environment. This is the true poetics of the commons.
Reclaiming the commons. We know enough of our own history by now to be aware that people exploit what they have merely concluded to be of value, but they defend what they love. To defend what we love, we need a particularizing language, for we love what we particularly know. The abstract, objective, impersonal, dispassionate language of science can in fact help us to know certain things and to know some things with certainty, but it cannot replace and it cannot become the language of familiarity, reverence, and affection by which things of value ultimately are protected. Wendell Berry, Life is a Miracle. Indigenous knowledge and the knowledge commons. Indigenous knowledge, by its very nature, defies all attempts at its compartmentalization. Boven and Mohorashki rightly caution, it is only when we try to translate these local practices into Western terms that we are confronted with the need to choose a certain definition, and we see how difficult it is to give voice to a worldview which is sometimes completely different from our own. Original participation is a concept expressed by the worldview of Indigenous cultures, which means that their members are born into an integral world community where they speak on behalf of the four-legged ones, the winged ones, the finned ones, the forest, the mountain, the bees, the river, and the seas. This is a reflection of a consciousness that is supremely evolved, not primitive or backward, And it is more crucial than ever to safeguard the increasingly precarious future of our planet. Indigenous knowledge strongly situates itself in the commons of knowledge, which is intricately linked to the commons of nature. And we are increasingly seeing reclamation of the categories of commons simultaneously supported by the emergence of new rights, which are universal in nature. Some examples being the right to access information emerging for the digital commons, and third or fourth generation fundamental rights being created for the commons of nature.
Mothers, you have 100 forms and 1,000 growths. You who have 100 ways of working, make this man whole for me. Be joyful, you plants that bear flowers, and those that bear fruit. Like mares that win the race together, the growing plants will carry us across. You mothers who are goddesses, let me win a horse, a cow, a robe, and your very life, oh man. When I take these plants in my hand, yearning for the victory prize, the life of the disease vanishes as if before, a hunter grasping at his life. He through whom you plants creep, limb by limb, joint by joint, you banish disease from him like a huge man coming between fighters. Fly away disease from him like a huge man coming between fighters. Fly away disease along with the blue jay and the jay, disappear with the howl of the wind, with the rainstorm. Let one of you help the other, let one stand by the other. All of you working together, help this speech of mine to succeed. Recovery of the commons. The spread of the commons discourse in recent years has had a double effect. It has helped identify new commons, and in providing a new public discourse, it has helped develop these commons by enabling people to see them as commons. David Bollier, 2007. Very similar to the endeavor of studying nuanced social processes is the task of a biologist to investigate complex processes. A biologist's approach involves observing the simplest possible organism in which the process to be investigated is seen in a clarified and exaggerated form. The reason for choosing this organism is not that it is the most representative, but that it allows the process under investigation a more effective study. The organism we consider in this section is the commons. The aim of this section is to look at processes and systems that are increasingly recovering our commons, protecting our commons, and reclaiming the sovereignty of our communities. Through this, it aims to achieve the double effect of Bollier's, where it recognizes efforts at creating and recovering commons, as well strives to reinforce and inspire new ways of creating more commons.
Community seed banks. Bija Swaraj, seed sovereignty, is our birthright, and we shall defend it with our life. For seed is life, and without the seed, there can be no life. It is a gift of Mother Nature that has sustained the Indian civilization for over 8,000 years. In our culture, the seed is sacred and revered as a progenitor of life and not a commodity. Diversity is the life and the very basis of ecological stability. diverse ecosystems, birth diverse life forms and diverse cultures. And seed is integral to this diversity. Seed is life. Reclaiming the seed of commons is reclaiming the commons of life. This seed commons has been guarded and stewarded by our farmers through their collective and shared knowledge and knowledge systems which have evolved over generations. Communities all over the globe have cultivated knowledge and found ways to derive their livelihood from nature's bounty of diversity in both wild and domesticated forms. The corporate hijack of our diversity that we face today threatens the intergenerational weaving of knowledge and ways of being. The indigenous knowledge of seed saving and conservation has almost been wiped off from our collective fabric and memories because of the agro-tech companies forcing their hybrid seeds and chemicals on our farmers. Thus, community seed banks have become the physical and metaphorical site of resistance against this new seed imperialism to defend our Bija Swaraj seed sovereignty and our Anna Swaraj food sovereignty and reclaim our commons. Community seed banks, CSBs, are essentially local, informal institutions which collectively maintain, protect, and conserve seeds for local use. While there are multitudes of seed saving initiatives going by different names, for instance, Community Gene Bank, Farmer Seed House, Seed Hut, Seed Wealth Center, Seed Savers Group, Community Seed Reserve, Seed Library, Seed Cooperative Networks, etc. They are all geared toward the reclaiming of seed commons. In 1997, paper by Lewis and Mulvaney, one finds the first scientifically studied topology of community seed banks globally. They classify the community seed banks into 5 types: de facto seed banks, community seed exchanges, organized seed banks, seed saver networks, and ceremonial seed banks. More recently, Verneuil et al. Expanded the classifications and identified different seed banks based on their functions.
Function, conservation, short-term conservation of mostly local varieties, longer-term conservation of heirloom and rare varieties, and restoration of lost varieties, development of protocols for conservation of healthy seed, and training of local communities. Function, access, and availability. Services are platform of offering multiple channels of access and availability of seeds at the community level, maintenance of locally adapted seed at low cost, fostering of seed exchanges at local and supra-local levels, access to novel diversity not conserved locally, and capacity to respond to local crises, disaster, shortage of seeds, seed multiplication, including varieties bred through participatory activities. Function, seed and food sovereignty. Services, maintenance of local control over seed conservation, exchange, and production activities, community-based biodiversity management, income generation through the sale of seeds, sharing knowledge and expertise, links between ex situ and in situ conservation, support of traditional and ethnic food culture, contribution to ecological and food sovereignty movements. The source is Table 1 from Verneuil, etc. et al., the multiple functions and services of community seed banks. Despite these classifications, it is important to understand that most community seed banks not only serve interconnected and holistic functions, but also broadly facilitate 4 kinds of interlinked rejuvenations. Rejuvenation of agricultural biodiversity as a common property resource, rejuvenation of farmers' self-reliance in seed locally and nationally, rejuvenation of sustainable agriculture as the foundation for food security, both locally and nationally, and rejuvenation of farmers' rights as common intellectual rights of agricultural communities.
Navdanya Seed Bank. Via Swaraj is our birthright, and we shall defend this right by all means necessary. To conserve agrobiodiversity in different agroecological zones of India, Navdanya began establishing community seed banks and identifying seed keepers and seed producers. These community seed banks are a step towards the identification and conservation of important traditional seed varieties. They also help in orienting the agricultural community towards conservation and cultivation of important, highly nutritious traditional crops and varieties. In the recent past, community seed banks within Navdanya working areas have helped conserve the traditional agrobiodiversity. These seed banks are being managed by the farming community itself. To date, Navdanya has set up 124 community seed banks in 22 states of India. Many seed banks are now running independent of Navdanya's support. Navdanya has also trained and created awareness amongst nearly 750,000 farmers in seed sovereignty, food sovereignty, and sustainable agriculture over the past 2 decades, and helped set up the largest direct marketing fair trade organic network in the country. It has also established a conservation and training center at village Ramgarh in Doon Valley, in Secunderabad in Uttar Pradesh, and Balasore in Orissa. In Navdanya's living seed banks, the contributions of farmers to identifying, studying, modifying, and cultivating varieties to suit their ecological, economic, and other needs are recognized. Farmers are the experts, situated at the center of conservation activity. Conservation starts and ends in the fields. It is carried on within the environment where the diversity grows. While corporate agriculture does not acknowledge farmers' agricultural skill and contributions to breeding, therefore awarding breeders' rights only to the seed industry and researchers, Navdanya partnership model of conservation recognizes that farmers and scientists are equals. This partnership model is committed to creative solutions that fall far from the mainstream and question the dominant model of food production and distribution.
More than 4,000 rice varieties have been collected, saved, and conserved by Navdanya in the last 26 years. Forgotten food crops such as millets, pseudo-cereals, and pulses have been conserved and promoted by Navdanya, which were previously pushed out by the Green Revolution and expanding monocultures. How the community seed bank functions. Groups of farmers, mostly women, are organized to collect, multiply, and exchange traditional seeds and indigenous-derived knowledge. Members are responsible for conservation of indigenous crop varieties. Each farmer conserving seeds is known as a seed keeper. Farmer members collect the seeds available in their village. The seed bank is provided with the initial supply of seeds by Navdanya either from the farmers who are already cultivating them in surrounding villages or from the existing seed banks or farmers of similar agroclimatic regions. Farmers who were interested in growing indigenous varieties are also given technical know-how on cultivation of these crops, raising seeds, and pest management organically. At season's end, farmers return the seed with some additional amount that they borrowed from 25% that they borrowed from the seed bank. These seeds are then given to other farmers in the next season to multiply and also increase the number of member farmers. Initially, Naphtania provides each community assistance in running the seed bank. With time, the community takes over the management. That ends the reading for this week, and we're moving into our next section. We're watching a short video by the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance and highlighting their Seed Keepers Network. And a little brief highlight about the organization is Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance supports indigenous communities across Turtle Island with advocacy, education, and networking to revitalize indigenous food systems. The organization's goals are achieved through culinary mentorships, food sovereignty events, and Indigenous Seed Keepers Network. They currently operate a Seed Keepers Network in the Upper Midwest hub with over 25 partners and 2 local tribal communities, and helping out build a cooperative seed hub. And now they're focusing on expanding this work and replicating it across Turtle Island as well. So we'll continue this short video before we move on to discussion.
What is a seed? Our past, our present, and our future.
Our ancestors, our future generations.
Knowledge and cosmic understanding.
We are humbled by the seeds.
Seeds are what sustain me and my family.
The seeds of my ancestors.
Seeds are our children.
They're creation's children.
Seeds are our culture, our heritage.
Past, our history, and our health.
It's in our DNA, it's in our spirit that we know this.
We need to unite as a Native community to protect the seeds.
We're developing a network of seed stewards, seed keepers, seed growers.
Resources and wisdom together in a big circle.
Teaching, instructing.
Having seed exchanges. It's not only growing good seeds and creating access for them, but it's growing good seed stewards.
Multi-generational activities, carrying on our heritage.
Be self-reliant and self-sufficient.
Nourish those seeds and get them back on the table and into people's lives.
Because it's all about food, right?
You exploit what you merely value, but you defend what you love. And part of the seed sovereignty movement is remembering to love our seeds because they are our relatives.
The seed movement is not just the responsibility of the farmers or gardeners in our communities, but it's everyone's responsibility.
Decide what is being planted, where it's being planted, and by whom it's being harvested and gathered and cooked.
From seed to seed, just as our ancestors cared for them.
Corporations want to come in and buy the rights to our homeland's ability to make and keep life.
Nobody owns these seeds. Those seeds are life.
We are who our ancestors dreamed of. We need to be the ancestors to our future generations.
to you, Izzy.
Thank you, Kavi. That was a wonderful video, actually. The chef that was shown in the video, the sous chef, that's what he calls himself. He came to a food microbiology class I had and gave us a really incredible lecture. And I really, really want to go to one of his schools and eat his food. It just looks amazingly delicious. That's how you eat. I mean, that video is obviously relevant for many reasons today. And I was going to go into a little bit about the text, which I still want to get into, but I think that was such a wonderful video. And I don't want to gloss over that and just get into like a critique of the text. I would love to spend some time discussing that instead, before we get into like a theoretical discussion or something like that. So if anyone has something they want to share or speak to, yeah, let's get started.
Well, I think it's interesting to push this question of what is a living thing? Because as I came into this week and I was thinking about seeds, you know, I thought about how seeds have the capacity for life. But I think, you know, sometimes as humans, we are so zoomed into the day-to-day rhythm and routine and perhaps pressure of whatever's going on in each person's individual framework that there are terms that we apply to things that kind of box energy into kind of predisposed categories. And what I loved about that video was that it was so clear that those seeds are life. Those seeds are life materials. And I've just been trying to lately zoom further and further and further out to appreciate more complexity and allow space for more width and more breadth of asking these questions, as opposed to looking at a rock and thinking that it's not alive, but trying to understand that the earth itself, you know, it's not like we're just life on earth and earth is this separate thing. It's if you zoom out far enough, it's all pretty continuous. So I love how that video and the speakers within it were so clearly in touch with something along those lines. It was very refreshing.
I just wanted to acknowledge like the feeling state that video evoked in me, and like talk about sound. The sound of that video is incredibly moving. And it really put me into a place of receiving the information with more than just my head. So I felt like I could almost smell the food because of the sound, which was an interesting experience. And it also felt incredibly appropriate given what today is for the United States, where everybody is in a compromised position by doing what's normal. So somehow seeing this today felt like a place of receiving nourishment on a very complicated day without language. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Emily, you talked about its livingness, the seeds and their livingness, but I also, what resonated with me quite a lot was their sacredness. and how they embody their past, and what they were saying about, you know, moving forward into next generations and being the protectors of those things for next generations. And that has to come from some sort of sacred sense about seeds. I was working for a little while in Panama with a group of people called the Kuna people, and they had a great word for seed that translated from Kuna into English as golden box. And I always think of how much of a treasure they all are. I'm kind of a seed hound. I just pull over in my car when I see something growing that looks like it's seeded, and come home with pockets of things I have to sort out what's what, and I don't really remember, and I end up planting them and figuring it out later or something. But there's something that draws me to them, and it's this kind of love that I think is only derived from a very sacred place. Thanks for that video. That was really nice.
Thanks, Walker. To kind of riff off what you were saying with seeds, I always think about the potential of what it'll become, and it's kind of the way to extending that relationality to humans, even to looking at children and the potential from the kind of the tiny being that they are to growing, and in a way reserving any kind of judgment or anything on them, because you don't know the full potential of the child of the seed until it fully flourishes into a human, into a full being. And so in that way, just I'm always mesmerized by seeing, you know, from a seed which starts to grow and become so much bigger than what it is, and it's just like a collection of energy in a way that's similar to kind of like the Big Bang, of just waiting to be just to get water and be nourished, and then bloom into its full potential as well.
And the fact that they're just these dried up little things. I mean, where we live on this land, there's been so little rain in the last 2 years that even my horses go out and they're just scrounging around for one little green something it's just so dry this year. But I know walking across that landscape, I'm just stepping on thousands of seeds that as soon as it's going to rain, is going to transform everything. And they're just sitting there all dried up and waiting. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I don't know how formed of a thought this is, but this conversation is making me think about part of the text that I think is really important, and that seeds are sacred, seeds are life. And seeds are also like galaxies of knowledge and information and history, and relational history that develops through, like it evolves over time. It holds, like one seed holds so much information about life. And that's why this biopiracy, this enclosure of seed, is not only an enclosure of a life form, but an enclosure of knowledge. It's really an enclosure of a relation between different types of beings. And I think Shiva is trying to take us there and understand seed in its complexity, in its multiplicity, as just these really profound, like there's this book called Stars in My Pockets, like grains of sand. And I keep thinking about that, but with seeds, like how seeds are almost like, it's like a galaxy in your hand. With the video where they're showing the seeds in their hands, it was really beautiful to think about it that way.
I liked the part of the text that speaks to what you just said, Izzy, is that it's very hard to find words to transpose a different worldview into the European worldview. and the way it relates is that I think the sense of a tiny seed having within it the entire history of the planet is in that seed, where it came from. And it's also in us. And that sense of time that's encapsulated in that tiny seed is something that this modern European scientific notion, which separates physics from biology and which has these very different paradigms of ways to speak about things, it doesn't capture it. And only when you really think about the merging of biology and physics together, that there's no such thing as a separate sort of framework of gravity and physics versus, you know, the biology, but that we're all part of this. And Einstein kind of described that we're part of this fabric of a space-time. He just called it space-time. It was a universal fabric with 4 dimensions, and each dimension interacted with other dimensions. It was very complex, and each warp and weft influences matter and energy within it, and that's life within it. But it's mutual. So life influences the space-time continuum, and space expands, time is flexible. I mean, time is flexible because it doesn't just exist out there. And so this dynamic world in which we really exist, we hardly have the words to express it. We use mathematics, but the European language framework is extremely limited to approach that. And so they translate, they can't hear what the parables and the stories and the ways that the indigenous people mean when they semiotically, when they speak those parables and stories, they can't fully grasp it. And it's only when you really consider and Vandana Shiva does a great job of bridging the scientific world with the indigenous worldview, because she walks both paths so well, that you can begin to have an inkling of what it really means to put boundaries around things like seeds is just an incredibly rudimentary, brutal, and arbitrary limitation. It really is an insult to life. So I really like that. And today of all days, I mean, I was thinking in particular when watching that video of a recipe which was a typical sort of Thanksgiving recipe, which had just too much sugar and too much everything. And I was just thinking about the food implied in the video, that it's seasonal, that there are only certain things that go together at certain times. And ultimately that tastes really good compared to the sort of concocted sort of sugary like creation that, you know, was done as an artifice, really. So I just appreciate not only the seed, but also the food ways, the knowledge of the people to use those seeds in particular ways and particular combinations and particular methods of cooking. That is the true riches.
That struck me as well, Ansu. And I think that watching that video, I felt some discomfort on Thanksgiving, which we're not observing in our house. But the connection that you made, Ansu, to space and time, and Izzy to the galaxy in your hand, and what you were saying, Emily, about zooming out and taking this broad view, it is amazing that something so tiny can kind of take you into this expanding cosmos where really everything is connected. And the idea that arose for me powerfully was this idea of latency, and both in potential and also in harm, the latent harm that's still being experienced by Native peoples as a result of colonialism, and also the latent potential in the seed. So I think you have these events that are happening that are disjointed in time, but are still very much connected. And a seed can be an entry point into both of those possibilities, both of those paths.
Oh, I think you're muted, Ansu.
No, I mean, what you said about this issue of being disjointed in time, I would just like to say that, you know, that's something very arbitrary and that we make up and that we discuss amongst ourselves or we experience it in a certain way. But if we took a step back and considered it, nothing's really disjointed in time. I mean, we are reproducing things that happened before, and it's actually all part of one continuum, I guess.
Also, to Emily's point, how she phrased it, looking at life and, you know, sort of the dormant state of a seed versus the living state of a seed. When you take a view from a high enough level, it all blends together. And I think temporally, when you look at human history on the planet, it's such a blink of an eye compared to the longevity of existence, that things that are historical or, you know, a long time ago are not actually that removed and are having continued and real impacts to this day.
Something I just wanted to touch on that I was reminded of when you were first speaking, Ansu, was actually something I was going to bring up post-reading, but it felt like it wasn't really relevant after watching that video. And it was a little struggle I was having in the text with the landscape of language a little bit, because, you know, Shiva talks about how there are terms that are really limited, these westernized terms that can't capture the fullness of something. But also, you know, she's almost a legal scholar where she's writing about law and the history of law and the way that rights are formed. And I felt like, and even at times she says, you know, there's a difference between the commons and open access systems. And the commons are not unruly, they're not unmanaged. There are people that have ownership over it. And these people deserve and should have rights. Which those are all things that I agree with, but I challenge the language a little bit in the sense that, you know, when we're saying that it's unmanaged, management to me is a term that when I hear that, I think about like capitalist governance and ordering and structures of, it's not even necessarily hierarchical, but a kind of like, yeah, kind of hierarchical, as well as unruly or unlawful, which I actually don't think that we should be using those words in negative ways. Like, instead of saying that, you know, and I understand that it's a particular strategic attempt at saying the commons have a system that's developed and it does work, but I don't think that it needs to be necessarily described as something with rule or something with management or something that has a level of ownership. Yes, the indigenous communities that have a relationship with the land and the commons, they should have complete access to continue that relationship. But I don't necessarily, I also question the limitations of trying to, you know, direct law in the order of the commons, because I wonder how much law is actually able to access a true like reclamation or de-enclosure of it. So yeah, I don't know. These were just things I was thinking of.
I mean, to me, my reaction to that would be, Izzy, you're coming at it from a particular, like, located and sociocultural background. And I can sort of understand Vandana Shiva's sociocultural background and her world around her that she's writing from, both. And I would just say that perhaps the word management is throwing you off, but if she had used the word ritual or practice, you might get that connection better.
Yeah.
I think she's just referring to the fact that it was common in India in the 70s and 60s and 80s to still have common areas in which, much like the tribal people here who had long associations with their lands, there were villages associated with shared communal areas, and they had particular ways of using that land, about who went in there and how things were used and all of that. So I venture to say, I'm not exactly sure of which part of the text you're referring to, but I venture to say that by management in the commons, she was referring more to the longstanding practices of communities around those commons. And that was much more accessible to her than in the European context, where back in the 1600s and 1700s, land was encircled. There was no more commons. The peasants were without food, and that drove a lot of the out-migration to the New World. So there's that. And then the second part about the law, I think that's her weakest area. I think she's incredible in conceptual writing, but in terms of the actual law, it also is a very socioculturally contextualized thing. I mean, American law comes from I wrote it down, the masculinist, individualist, reductionist way of being, direct quote from Vandana Shiva. So there you go,
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump into this Flo, Izzy, and Ansu and talk about the word in the title, reclaiming, because I think that it says a lot about the tone of her text. I think she is fighting for something with perpetrators of robbery. So when she talks about reclaiming the commons, it's actually talking about, it's very different from stewardship, like the film that we saw, the video that we saw, I think ultimately is a celebration of something that doesn't look like it's been taken away. It looks like it's being stewarded forward without kind of challenge. But the title, Reclaiming the Commons, and some of the language in it is an active defiance to the status quo of genetically modified seeds, taking seed sovereignty and food sovereignty away from farmers and people, and therefore interdependence itself and life is at risk, because life requires diversity and survival requires seed that can respond to changing challenges. So I think a lot of her tone is combative, and it's combative toward a specific enemy, and that enemy is the genetically modified seed monopoly.
Yeah. No, it is.
I think it's also the co-opting by these neoliberal institutions about the commons as a tangible physical thing on the ground versus the commons as a relational way of being, which is part of human history. And I think she's trying to bring that into the legal framework and sort of express that more behavioral and human heritage kind of way, rather than just a physical property equation.
This conversation is so amazing, and there's so much more I wanted to talk about. I really wanted to get into the commons as a complex living organism, which she states in the text, but sadly, we are getting to time. We're going to go a little bit over tonight, so we can enjoy Emily's amazing sound piece that's set up. It looks stunning. We'll probably go to 7:10. So thank you, everyone, for this incredible discussion, and I'll pass it over to Emily now. Thank you so much, Emily. That was incredible. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. That was so cool.
Thank you.
Emily.
Thank you.
You're a genius.
Yeah. You are.
I'm throwing seeds of magical flowers your way.
Yay. Such a joy. Joy and a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Good evening.
He run away.
There's a doggy. Critter, right?
Yeah.
I got my 2 doggies here.
Have a good
I got Bucky.
season. Oh my God.
Bucky, and then Lulu. Lulu, it's his little sister.
Panda bear.
Yeah. Hey. He's like, you guys talking about me? Thanks so much for coming tonight, guys. I'm glad we could be together.
It was so beautiful. It was really, really potent, gorgeous. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. See you next time. Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.